Welcome to BizMeds with Darris and Saad, where we give you the medications for your business. This podcast is all about the minimum effective doses you need to make a massive improvement in your business. Listen and enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode to BizMeds, another episode of BizMeds. We're your hosts. My name is Saad.
And I'm Darris.
So for today's episode, we kind of wanted to talk about an area we briefly touched upon in one of our early episodes. And the idea is that we have one of our business clients, and he is an expert. And I'm not going to give too much details about what he's an expert in.
Yes.
But
he's a self-proclaimed expert.
Yes.
Has a lot of skill and has accumulated a lot of knowledge and knows how to do the work,
particular thing.
the work that he does extremely, extremely well.
Exactly. And so when we were having a conversation with him, he was finding struggle in having an employee come do the same type of work with the same quality of craftsmanship and just the minute details of making it perfect the way he does. So he was having a bit of a hard time finding somebody to do that for him. And we were having a conversation with him regarding the skills versus mastery area. So today we thought it'd be a perfect space to talk about skill versus mastery.
Yeah.
So, just to finish the thought off there, he is now a business owner and he's growing and he's doing a really good job and his product's kind of spoken for himself. He's at a stage now where he's wondering, like, does he continue being the product, or does he now move further into the ownership space and have somebody come and do the same thing?
Right. I think there's a couple of things at play there. Well, there are definitely a few things at play in what that looks like. So, this particular example, and with the person we're talking about, there's an element of, when you first start out and you're the solopreneur or the entrepreneur, you go out and you typically do most of the work on your own, right? And you literally, or not literally, but realistically, you have achieved a certain level of mastery, right? So a skill that kind of goes beyond a normal kind of level, right? Or something that sets you apart. And which is when people generally have that entrepreneurial seizure where they want to go do something more, like, oh, well, I can turn this into a business. And so at some point, there's an inflection point where you have to move from being the doer into, now transitioning to that, wearing those other roles as a business owner. So the manager and strategic thinker, you have to move through that and spend less time as Michael Gerber calls it, the technician, right? So the doer of the work. So from that standpoint, so we'll talk specifically around making that transition. So what typically happens is that when people have that thought, again, they've achieved a certain level of expertise, right? And that usually some level of mastery, right? So they're going for a level of mastery. And for those, let's be really clear. When we talk about mastery, the reason why mastery is so important is because we are already wired, we're predisposed to want to achieve and build skill sets, right? And we want to do that. And it becomes a intrinsic motivator. So we get motivated from the inside by doing that. So last time, think about the last time you did something hard, right? And it was like, did you do it for the sake of doing it?
Yeah.
Mostly we do things because we enjoy that. And what we used to think, or neuroscientists used to think, that dopamine came after, right? It was the reward chemical. So after you did something, you accomplished, oh, you got your dopamine hit. What we now know is that dopamine is the precursor. So we get it, but right before we take that risk. And so it rewards the risk taking And that's how we then train that pathway to become, to continue on that level. So for those that want to keep doing that, it becomes continual reinforcing. The dopamine becomes a continual reinforcement pathway from a neuroscience standpoint.
To dumb that down a little bit, it explains why, like so I'm going to use a gym example. It explains a lot more why I enjoy doing a chest day versus a leg day. Because immediately my brain is like excited about doing something that I'm going to enjoy doing versus something that I'm going to dread doing.
Yeah.
Is that a good example?
That's a great example. And I'll add to that with if you want to make leg days more enjoyable, it's really the same pathway that makes them more enjoyable, right? So it's the grit, and that's a different skill that you can acquire. It's the same dopamine. If you keep doing it, we'll trigger that same pathway. It's how we, that risk taking, that feeling as we begin to move into that space. That's when that dopamine starts to arrive, and that's how you can actually train grit. That to do something when you don't feel like doing it. That discipline versus motivation. That becomes a way to do it, right? We do it even when we don't want to feel it doing. The dopamine will show up as that precursor, and eventually we'll start to develop that new pathway. It's really important for people that don't really like that.
I have a friend that calls it upper chest day and lower chest day.
That's a good it's the mental
gymnastics. Just mentally, yeah. But sorry, to continue, yeah.
So let's get back to the mastery versus skills. All right. Now, we kind of outline that mastery is really intrinsic motivator, and where this person particularly is running into issues is that feeling they have to be the master in all of the areas.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a critical skill set or critical mindset shift for business owners, is knowing or being able to learn how to distinguish what areas you need to be master in or master the skill of, versus the other idea of, as a business owner, what are the things that you really only need to leverage a certain level of skill in? You just need, look at it from I'm going to assume many have heard of the 80-20 rule. And for those of you who haven't, it's based on Pareto's law, which really says 20% is the cause for 80%. And I'm really dumbing that down. And so for anyone who knows the exact definition, please don't Google it. You'll see that we're looking at the framework here. Right?
In the comments. Yeah. Actually,
that's fine. The 80-20 rule is, into our intents and purposes, is what is the 20% of skill acquisition that you can do that's going to get you 80% of the results, right? It shows up in a lot of different areas of business. It's usually 20% of your customers bring you 80% of your revenue. And that's a pretty standard, formula or result that you see happening throughout business. So that's why it's there. It's why they talk about the 80-20 rule. They talk about it in business school. They talk about it in, I believe, business statistics. There's empirical evidence that supports that, generally speaking. So now when we're talking about building a business, right, the cognitive load and having a larger cognitive load around, I have to feeling overwhelmed because you're feeling like you have to master every area. You don't. The idea is becoming really skilled at knowing where to spend your time to master, what's going to give you the best leverage and most amount of results, and what areas do you just need to get 20% of the skill to give you 80% of the results.
Yeah. So
do you have to become a master marketer on the front end? Probably not, right? Can you learn 20% skills of marketing to give you 80% of your results, which is probably phenomenally better than you're already doing? That's probably more realistic.
So I think that's an excellent transition to the question I was about to ask, and you've already touched on it a little bit. So as a business owner, what do you think is things that should be mastered? And obviously, you've already said sales and marketing are a skill to have. You don't have to master them.
Right.
But
I think for that, you develop a certain skill, but then you bring people in
that are masters,
right? That want to exercise mastery in that.
I like to touch back on the leverage episode. So anybody hasn't listened to our leverage episode, it's a good tie into this 80-20 thing.
All those ideas can keep coming back because they're all interconnected. Right? We want to keep tying those and reinforcing those.
Yeah, going back to the whole thing, these are frameworks. They are evergreen, work in every situation. So going back to like what a business owner should be a master in, obviously first thing that comes to my mind is knowing what it is that the business is based around, like having at least a little bit of a, I don't know if I would say like a 20% skill, but I would say you'd have to be a little bit closer to the mastery stage to understand what the business is and what it is that you're trying to do with that business. And I'd like your input on what you think about that. But because for me, like, for example, if you're opening up a steakhouse, you got to be a master on making some steaks. Right?
Well, you would think. But I've gone to a lot of steakhouses that are below mediocre. We won't even mention it.
Exactly. For the steakhouses that want to be mentioned, we're looking for sponsors.
Wait, didn't you recommend a steakhouse to some friends?
Yeah, exactly.
And they couldn't find it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it's a difficult question, only so much that, yes, do I think you have to have really clear or become more and more clear? When you first set out, do you have the clarity in where you're going that you will maybe a couple of years from now? Probably not, right? So I would say that is an element of mastery, right? You are continually refining. You never arrive at the level where you say, oh, I've made it, right? That's kind of one of the key hallmarks of mastery. There is no destination. The journey is ongoing because there's always something to learn. There's always ways to get better. I would say in the communication, from a business owner standpoint, like managing people and learning how to the intricacies and the complexities of the human condition and how to help people move in a way that's like to the best part of themselves and move them past themselves. I believe that's that is a cornerstone, like mastery things that we should be endeavoring always is to do that.
Right.
I mean, I think it's going to be different for different people. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think just the exercise alone of sitting down and say, okay, like if I am looking at my business, what are the things that really motivate me to want to always continue to learn and be better in, right? Or what are the things that I know as I move down the road, like I'm going to have to become better in. And sometimes that might be in your weakness area, right? So you have strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes I used to have one mentor that said, just play to your strengths. Don't worry about the weaknesses. And I have found that while it sounds really great on the front end, mm-hmm. in practice, not always great advice.
Yeah.
It's going back to the last episode where we talked about the books, right? It's that whole idea of what got you here won't get you there. So if I'm just playing to my strengths all the time, that's cool. What if I'm a great salesperson and that's all I do is sell? Great. What about delivery? What about customer service? What about systems? What about all those other things that make up a great business?
Yeah.
And if I just focus on my ability to sell, great. So you sell. What about the profitability? What if I'm not selling in a scenario that's actually profitable? And the faster I sell, the quicker I'm putting the business out of business.
What if no one's buying?
Well, if I'm,
well, no. So
I think the hallmark of a great salesperson is actually people are buying.
Well, my brain went to immediately was that when COVID happened, nobody was getting gym memberships. So a gym salesperson would have to like redevelop, and going back to what you're saying, like finding a different way to be profitable, different way to sell. Like there's different avenues. Like you're gonna have skills in every single one.
Yeah.
Actually just going to go back to the growth of the business where you were saying like, well, you might start off in being the master
mm-hmm.
of, might not be what you're doing the next little while.
Exactly.
And it reminded me of Alex Hormozi's example with his business, and that whole story really well. Add where necessary, because I might be butchering it a little bit, but he started with the gym launch business.
He started selling gym memberships.
Yeah,
because he had his own gym.
Yeah.
Right. So he's started his own gym because like, oh, I can do that. And I got trained. And I want to learn this business after he left the consulting world. Start my gym. So he went to learn how to run a gym. That's what he did. And then he sold memberships.
Started selling memberships and then moved into the launching of other businesses to help them get more memberships. And then that stopped when COVID came around, or there was a little period in his like career growth where that completely stopped.
I think it changed.
Yeah, there was a bit of a change. Yeah. So it was and nobody was looking to launch businesses anymore. So then they were actually like, oh, you know what? We will take your knowledge on how to work this business with that knowledge, with that framework. And then he became the new one's called acquisition.com.
Yeah. So he runs acquisition.com. So then, so they went from selling memberships, and what he focused on was building and mastering marketing, right? So that he knew how that he could sit down in front of any gym and he knew which ads to run, what hooks, offers, all of the fundamental components of a really great marketing message would bring people into the business, right? And so I have a system now, right? So then he started to leverage that system. Instead of, I could just sell memberships to my gym, but actually I have dreams of growing bigger. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that now. I'm going to leverage that. I'm going to create a system, and I'm going to go and I'm going to launch. You're going to pay me. Actually, you're not going to pay me anything up front. What I'm going to do is I'm going to guarantee you that when we launch your gym, we're going to get X amount, and I'm going to get paid from that. So there's no risk. So he started just continually iterating that mastery level like skill and building it even more so that he could then bring people in, generate revenue, he gets paid. And then what they did was, they had a real kind of bump in the road, and what it did helped him realize that, I can take this, actually I can just sell the licensing of it. And you just want me to teach you how to do that. And then they did gym launch. So instead of going out and flying out to go launch gyms, and they just taught people how to
launch gyms.
Right. And then because he masters, and if you look at it and watch his stuff now, he is a master of marketing.
Yeah. And he's really good at exactly that piece. So the reason why I brought up gym launch is because he was a master at selling. And exactly what you're saying, you need to have a little bit of skill on each other front to be able to like grow it.
Yes.
But now he's a master at marketing. Not to say that he's not a master at sales still, but
both of those, right? So marketing and sales together. So not only could he bring people in, but he also then developed his skill set to where he was a master closer. So if you even listen to the way he talks, you'll see that he handles a lot of things up front. Most salespeople wait and they handle objections at the very end, right? So he basically takes care of all that stuff on the front end. So I would say in that scenario, that served him very well. So that's one of the areas for him that would be mastery level. So he will continue because they know that marketing and sales are such the drivers. It's the oxygen and blood of the business. So but they also have enough skill in that to know when the mastery level person comes in, they know what they're doing and they can work with them, right? And they augment that. Now they don't have to do all of that. They now have teams that they manage. And so if you now watch them, if you look at both Layla and Alex, you can see even Layla's, the way she hires and develops systems and things like that, right? So even the way they approach communication is mastery level, right? So those are the things that you continually, because that is the thing. And so I think what we're trying to get to here in the context of our podcast is that it's very easy in your, even the climb from zero to million to 10 million is feeling like you are having to be the master of everything. And maybe partially understand that there could be some neurochemicals that are moving you along that path that encouraging you to do that. That is not the most efficient or resourceful use of your time and energy.
Yeah.
And it's probably the things, okay, what do I taking a really good inventory of all of those things that you need to have to do and say, okay, what of these can I, maybe you're not a strong finance person. Okay. So, but can I learn 20% of the skill to get me 80% of the results? Or can I get 20% of that to do 80% of the results that I need to get me through until I can bring someone that's going to really excel in that role and wants to do it from a mastery level, right? That someone who forever is like, oh, well, yeah, let me work on the financial side because I love finances. Like that's what gets me out of bed. And I originally went to university to become an accountant, right? And I can tell you that does not excite me. It's not an intrinsic motive. Mastery level on that is,
but you have an understanding of it now. Right?
I now have a very deep understanding. I was very fortunate because I did bookkeeping when I was 12, and then I was responsible for $90 million P&L statement. So I understand it. I know what I need to know. I don't need to know cost center. I don't need to know all the intricacies of how we record that. I know basic accounting, well, pretty advanced accounting. But those aren't things that are my core competency. Those are on the mastery level, right? Where I need to do is, I need to focus on communication. How do I become a better coach? How do I become a better communicator? How do you, all these other things. So systems and marketing. So like, how do you become mastery level or strategy as a whole? Because those tell you where you're going to go. And then you bring people in to augment that, want to do the mastery level.
Was it the problem with a lot of small businesses is that they get into it. Well, most people get into business to make money, have as much money possible coming directly to them. So the problem is they'll end up wanting to be a master in every piece to keep the most amount of money in the immediate term.
Right.
And they lose the bigger vision of what they can become, what the next step should be. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's why a lot of businesses don't succeed, because they're so short-term, immediate-minded in terms of like getting everything right away, right now, and doing it all with one person. Yeah. And one, you burn out, you aren't able to keep up with the demand, your product starts lacking just because you're taking too much on. You're missing time with your family, you're missing friends, you're a ghost to them.
Yes to all of that. And it is really, those things I think are early on easily more attributed to scarcity mindset, right? So the whole mindset part of that, yes, people go into business, they want all this, and they already have a limited amount of, they don't have all of maybe the income that they're used to seeing maybe when they had a job or whatever it is. And so of course, when you have limited resources, you're going to act in a way that's, you're a human being, you're going to respond in a way. So you're going to want to hold on and keep as much of that for yourself. And as a result, you'll try to do more and more and more and feel like you have to be the master in those areas, right? And that's, again, it's a progression as you get beat down, as you, this is the reality. This is the reality. You don't know it until like, it is one thing to sit there and tell you, this is exactly what you're going to go through, right? So when you bring a new client on, you can say, this is what you're going to do. Right now, you feel great. You're excited because we're going to do all this stuff and we're going to do these things and you're going to feel magically wonderful about all of it, right? And that's great because you feel that right now. And then what's going to happen is you're all of a sudden some anxiety and things aren't going to go exactly the way, they're not going to be as rosy and magical as you pictured them to be. So you're going to have some expectation gap. And then you're going to start to go down, right? You're going to go down, called the valley of despair. And you're going to start questioning all your decisions and all of that. And I can tell you this because it happens with every client. And then as we continue to work, as I continue to make, you'll see that, we tend to view things, oh yeah, it's going to be magic. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be perfect. Like, I've been waiting for this and it doesn't happen. So you hit that valley of despair and that's where most people quit. Right there. The ones that continue to move forward, what happens is, there's some lessons I need to learn to go through that and come out the other side. And
it goes back to the chest day, leg day. you go in with the chest day mindset, but when leg day comes around,
Yeah.
you're in the bottom and you're like, oh.
That's the way of it. And until you go through that and experience it, it's one thing to hear it and try to prepare yourself. It is another thing to go through it and then have to experience it. The benefit is having a little bit of awareness, knowing what the path is. Doesn't make going through the path any less painful or more enjoyable by any stretch of the imagination. It still sucks the same amount. It's like when my father passed away, the grief still sucks, even though you know what you have to go through. It still sucks.
The reality of it.
It's the reality of it. And until you go through that, you don't have the context to understand what that truly means. And so that it's completely normal that a lot of people have that scarcity mindset on the front end, right? And going into that, like, oh, I got to pull more in, or no one's going to do this as well as I could. Of course, they're not the owner of the business. That's why they didn't start it. And too many business owners go in, they think, well, I'm going to hire someone, they're going to fix my fucking problems. Like, no, you are the problem. That's the problem. And you have to fix you, and you got to fix your things, and you have to bring people along for the journey and help them and they start to care a little bit more, but your vision has to be big enough to carry them through that as well. And I know we went on a little bit of a tangent there. But coming back to passion and purpose. And so coming back to, what are some of the things that you can do? It's really kind of stopping for a moment, and it's counterintuitive because most business owners don't want to stop. They think that if they stop for a minute, half a day, or a day, they're overwhelmed with this immense sense of guilt and shame because, oh, well, if I'm not doing it, I'm not grinding. And so they don't ever stop. And that's the most important thing to do sometimes, is actually just stop and take an inventory of what the hell it is that you think you're doing. And then, okay, maybe what you need to do is actually do some reading. Do some reading and some investigation on, what is mastery? What are the things that I need to actually learn as a business owner and become better in, and not just be the sales guy all the time, that I might actually have to develop some additional skill, right? And you can absolutely leverage flow to help acquire those skills faster. So
agreed. Yep. So I really like what you were saying there with the mastery, and like business owners like constantly feeling so overwhelmed and trying to make everything happen all at once. And the purpose of, again, this podcast or this episode specifically, is to help business owners take that moment, just like you said, reevaluate, sit down, read a book, get an understanding on where you need to be at next, what the next steps should be, and maybe focus some energy and time onto that specific skill that's going to help you elevate and grow your business a bit more. So it's interesting to see, because a lot of times when you have this conversation with a business owner that's going through it very early, they get angry, they get pissed. It's like, don't tell me what I need to do with my business. And it's funny because, again, like you said, you don't really appreciate it until you have to go through it, and then you're on the opposite end. And then you look back like, oh, okay, yeah, well, this is what I could have done. So yeah.
I mean, mindset. We've talked about mindset, maybe not nearly as, we've done an episode on it, and maybe we need to do another one again here coming up. I think it's really the foundation for a lot of things, right? So if we're either open to things or we're closed, if you're talking to someone and they're saying, and I catch myself all the time when people are talking, like, oh, and I start to check out mentally, and then I catch myself and say, oh, what can I learn from this? And that reframes it immediately for me to keep me back on track. Say, okay, like, I can always learn something. Yeah. Right. You can learn what to do, what not to do. All you can, if you ask yourself, or you put yourself in a position where you want to learn, versus closing yourself off from learning. And that's a mindset thing. That is, do I want to grow? Growth mindset, or am I cool just being stagnant? And that goes back to some people, you can try tell them something, but if they're not willing or wanting to know and understand, then they never will. Right. Yeah. So for those that are listening and want to actually, if you're in a growth mindset and you're actually wanting to learn, then, sometimes taking stock and taking that inventory is like, okay, what are the things that I can actually find a way and start asking myself better questions of, okay, how could this be done differently? Could I hire someone to do this? Or could I find another service that does this, so it helps take the load off me and I could actually grow the business more to do what I need to do or focus on the other mastery things that I could do. Right.
Yeah. And it goes back to exactly what you just said, is that if you say, again, as a business owner, you want to make sure you have all of the money with you at all times, you're making 100% of the revenue and the profit. You're not giving anything out. If you invested, like, say, 10% of that, and in 2 months, that could double your total revenue. Why wouldn't you do that? Right?
Because your mind is closed off. Right?
Yeah.
Life has not bitch slapped you to teach you the lesson, or you're too unwilling to learn the lesson that you need to learn, that maybe that's what you could do. And for some people, guess what? Like, that's perfectly fine for them. That's what they want to do. And that's fine. It's not for everyone. Right? And some people will remain closed-minded, and that's the way they want to do that. And that's their vision. Well, who we're talking to are the people that want to grow a business bigger, right? We're not talking to the people that want to do all things for everyone in their business and spend every minute of their waking life always having to be where the buck stops.
Yeah.
That's not who we're talking to. So if that's who you are and you're not getting what you want, well, then that's fine. You're not our audience at all.
Yeah.
We're talking to those people who are wanting to grow a business much larger than they currently are, and are stuck and are feeling like they don't know where to turn. They don't know what the next step is. And that was the whole catalyst for us starting this podcast, was to give people the minimum effective dose to move past those things and understand, like, yes, you're not alone. Like, nothing you're going through is unique to you. And that's not to minimize what you're going through. It's to actually reassure you that you're not crazy. You're absolutely not crazy. You're not alone. There's many, many business owners out there who've experienced and are experiencing the exact same thing as you right now. Right? This is why we talk about this, because it's real. It happens. I lost my train of thought.
No, it was a good point you were making. And I was going to add to that we might not be the perfect example, but we are living it as is right now.
Yeah.
This whole thing, very honest, like, we're not making millions off of, like, helping people out doing these podcasts and giving out
we make no money off doing these podcasts.
Nothing.
And
this is us, like, investing into something in the future that is going to help out people on a larger scale, because that's the whole reason why we started this whole thing, is to help people out on a larger scale, add value back to, you guys.
Yeah, we're here because our mission is much bigger, right? Like, when clients ask us, why do you do what you do? And it's really about, if you can help people become better people, or better leaders within their business, the wave effect, the ripple effect of that is just phenomenal, right? So I had a client send a picture of, we talked about it in I think we talked about it in the last 2 episodes. One of them was Crucial Conversations, right? And it's a book to have all the clients read, because that is such an important skill to master, continually try to master, right? You don't, suddenly pick it up, read, I'm a great communicator now. Yeah. No, it's like, this is a lifelong endeavor. And then, so they send me a picture of another business owner that has that book on the other side of the country. And the message is, hey, you are living your dream because the ripple effect is real, right? So something that was given to me, to us as a resource, and we then hand it to others and encourage, like, that ripple effect keeps going. What's going to happen is all those people that reaches, is they're going to learn how to communicate maybe just a little bit better. And with that, guess what? Maybe the relationship with their spouse gets just a little bit better. The relationship with their children gets just a little bit better. The relationship with their people entrusted in their care and their business gets a little bit better. And as a result, those people learn just a little bit better. And that is why we do what we do. Because if we do that, like, how does the world become a worse place? How do we become worse off if we learn how to communicate better and we are in a place where we're communicating in a real place where things actually happen, and we're not communicating out of fear and all these other things, and not communicating, or going to silence and not communicating. Like, how do we become worse off by learning that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, say what you want. I mean, like, for us, this process is just as important, because if you may have never heard of that, and if that's just one little thing that you take away from this, and you learn, and it becomes just a little bit better, then that's a little bit better than we were before. Mm-hmm. And the more people get to that, then, and if you take just one thing away from all the podcasts we do and all the episodes, and you get one thing, that's great. That's one thing you didn't have before. And that can be the ripple effect for you. And then suddenly you take that and you make that change or do something differently, and it makes a phenomenal impact for you. And that just ripples forward, because guess what? Maybe that thing helps your revenue dramatically shoot up. And now you can hire more people. And now you're impacting other lives. And those people, and that keeps those people out of a food bank line. But we are impacting just one little thing at a time. And you have to start somewhere.
I think it's a perfect place to kind of wrap it up and summarize, like, kind of what the purpose of the podcast, again, was to talk about skill versus mastery. And with skill versus mastery, as a business owner, you should constantly strive to expand your skills in areas that you have no idea about within your business. Don't be just a master of the product that's going out there. Be a master of helping grow or have an understanding of the business as a whole. If you're the operations person, get an understanding of your sales side, get an understanding of your marketing side. See how that plays into the bigger picture, and how you can grow, scale, and improve what you're already doing.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to do. If that's not what you want to do, then
maybe you need to find something else
yeah,
to do.
exactly.
Yeah, and with that, yeah, we're not saying if you're an operations person, you have to become a master at sales. That's not what we're saying, right? As a business owner, there's going to be things that you're going to develop your skill forever into a mastery level, right? So you continue to develop those, and those are important things. Those are the forever things. Mm-hmm. So we have example like communication. That's a huge one, right? It might be coaching and leadership as another example. It might be strategic thinking, and with those other things, it's going to be slightly different. That's why we say take an inventory of where you think you might be overextending yourself or trying to become a master in something that you don't have any interest in becoming a master. Or like I said, from the financial side, I have enough skill. We have enough skill in that area, but bring people in that really want mastery level in those. And we can tie that back to that whole leverage game, or the whole leverage discussion around how to get some leverage. Well, if I don't have a tremendous degree of want to become a financial master, well, how can I bring someone in, or how can I put systems to help do that so that we have that in there? Yeah. And not all of your time has to be spent trying to become a master of everything. Yeah. That is not efficient for you.
Yeah.
And it's not going to help you grow your business.
Exactly. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in again. We appreciate your support, your listening. So
if you got anything, please like, share, subscribe, put the notification on.
Yeah. Comment.
Yes, comment. If you're on Apple or Spotify, please, all we ask is you leave a review. One word, doesn't matter. Just helps the algorithm push it out a little bit further. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, put a comment down below. We will more than happy respond to that if there's anything else you like there. and always to the mothers that continually support us. Thank you so much. Saad's mom, my mom, please, we appreciate it so much, and everyone else.
Perfect.
We will catch you in the next episode.
See you in the next episode, guys.